In the modern economy, athletes are conditioned to believe their peak earning years end the moment they step off the court. Earvin "Magic" Johnson completely obliterated that timeline. With a net worth now surging past an estimated $1.2 billion, Johnson is worth nearly 30 times what he earned during his legendary NBA career. But this fortune wasn't built on sneaker endorsements. It was engineered through a hostile takeover of Los Angeles real estate, unprecedented corporate joint ventures, and a sports ownership monopoly. Chapter 1. The Cinema Catalyst, Proving the Urban Thesis. To comprehend the sheer magnitude of Earvin Johnson's corporate dominion, one must return to the geographical and economic realities of Los Angeles in the mid-1990s. Following his retirement from professional basketball, Johnson established Magic Johnson Enterprises in 1987, initially utilizing it as a holding company to navigate his early business interests. However, the true architectural foundation of his billionaire status was poured when he identified a massive, glaring inefficiency in the American commercial real estate market. Institutional developers and major retail chains had systematically abandoned densely populated, ethnically diverse urban neighborhoods, categorizing them as high-risk zones devoid of purchasing power. Johnson saw the exact opposite: an entirely captive audience with significant disposable income being forced to leave their own communities just to consume primary entertainment. In 1995, Johnson executed a highly strategic joint venture with the Sony/Loews theater chain to construct a massive 12-screen multiplex in the Baldwin Hills neighborhood of South Los Angeles. This was not a philanthropic endeavor, it was a calculated proof of concept. At the time, constructing a premium, state-of-the-art cinema complex in that specific zip code was viewed by traditional Wall Street analysts as a perilous gamble. Johnson leveraged his unparalleled cultural equity to guarantee the safety, viability, and cultural resonance of the project. He understood that his personal brand acted as a definitive shield against the perceived risks that paralyzed institutional investors. The Baldwin Hills multiplex became an instant, overwhelming financial triumph. It generated extraordinary ticket revenue and proved to the broader corporate sector that urban demographics were a highly lucrative, entirely untapped consumer base. This initial real estate victory fundamentally established the core thesis of Magic Johnson Enterprises, utilizing brand visibility and localized demographic knowledge to drive economic empowerment and extract massive financial returns from underserved markets. By successfully bridging the gap between corporate capital and the inner city, Johnson positioned himself as the ultimate gatekeeper for any major brand wishing to penetrate urban Los Angeles. Chapter 2. The Starbucks Liquidity Event, The Art of Cultural Translation. While the theater venture proved the viability of urban development, Johnson required a truly scalable, national partner to generate institutional-level liquidity. He identified that partner in Starbucks, a rapidly expanding coffee giant that had, up until the late 1990s, focused almost exclusively on affluent suburban and downtown corporate markets. In 1998, Johnson secured a landmark meeting with Starbucks leadership and pitched an audacious concept: bringing premium coffee to the inner city. To execute this, he secured an unprecedented agreement, becoming the only such licensee in the entire history of the massive coffee chain. Operating under the banner of Urban Coffee Opportunities, Johnson acquired and developed roughly 125 Starbucks locations across major metropolitan areas. But his genius lay in the execution of cultural translation. He explicitly instructed corporate management that the standard suburban Starbucks model would fail in his neighborhoods. He insisted on modifying the internal atmosphere to reflect the local demographic, replacing the standard classical and acoustic playlists with R&B music, and swapping out traditional European pastries for culturally resonant items like sweet potato pie. This localized customization transformed the stores into vibrant community hubs, driving immense foot traffic and sustained profitability. For over a decade, Johnson managed this sprawling retail portfolio, capturing the cash flow from daily consumer transactions across his network. Then, in October 2010, he executed a textbook private equity maneuver. Recognizing that the market had matured, he exited the joint venture, selling 105 of his franchise stores back to the Starbucks corporate parent in a monumental transaction valued at an estimated $100 million. This extraordinary liquidity event was the critical turning point in his financial trajectory. It provided him with the massive, unencumbered cash reserves required to transition from a retail franchisee into an institutional financier and major sports owner. Chapter 3. The Canyon Johnson Urban Funds, a billion-dollar real estate machine. With the capital from his retail triumphs secured, Johnson engineered an aggressive expansion into commercial real estate development. To achieve the necessary scale, he formed a strategic alliance with Canyon Capital in 2001, launching the Canyon Johnson Urban Fund. The objective was to aggressively target urban redevelopment, property revitalization, and mixed-use commercial projects in marginalized areas. However, raising the initial capital was an arduous process. It took the fund 2 grueling years to secure its initial $300 million from cautious institutional investors. Once the first fund began demonstrating robust returns, the floodgates of institutional capital burst open. The second iteration of the fund rapidly raised $600 million. By April 2008, the third and most expansive investment vehicle secured an astonishing $1 billion in capital commitments from major pension funds and elite institutional backers. Through these sophisticated financial instruments, Johnson financed 31 distinct real estate developments spanning 13 states and the District of Columbia. His portfolio was no longer limited to individual retail storefronts. He was physically reshaping the skylines of major American cities. The Los Angeles projects executed by the Canyon Johnson Funds remain some of the most lucrative adaptive reuse developments in the region's history. The fund famously targeted a challenging, previously failed development site in Hollywood, constructing the Sunset Plus Vine mixed-use complex for $125 million and subsequently selling it for $160 million. In downtown Los Angeles, the fund orchestrated the acquisition of the 32-story former Transamerica Center, rebranded as the SBC Tower, for $100 million in 2003. After extensive repositioning and renovation, the asset was sold for $205 million, yielding spectacular margins. The fund also provided preferred equity for the massive $160 million One Santa Fe mixed-use development, proving that Johnson possessed the sophisticated financial architecture to orchestrate 9-figure infrastructure plays across the city. Speaking of the quietly smart play that pays off without any flash, that's what pulled someone on our team to the Pulse R8 Smart Ring. It reads your heart rate, your sleep, and your workouts right from your finger, a week on a charge, 100 days with the case, and it's fully waterproof. The surprise was the price. Under $40, a fraction of the big-name rings because it comes direct instead of through the retailers that mark everything up. If you're watching on your TV, pause and scan the QR code on screen with your phone camera, or tap the first link in the description. Now, back to the unglamorous, recession-proof business that quietly became Magic's fortress. Chapter 4. Sodexo Magic, the corporate B2B fortress. While real estate and consumer retail provide high-visibility milestones, true generational wealth requires absolute, recession-resistant stability. To construct a financial fortress that could withstand macroeconomic turbulence, Johnson pivoted into the highly unglamorous, yet extraordinarily lucrative sector of business-to-business services. In 2006, Magic Johnson Enterprises finalized a groundbreaking joint venture with Sodexo, a global titan in facilities management and food services. The resulting corporate entity, known as Sodexo Magic, was structured with Johnson holding a controlling 51% ownership stake. This enterprise operates entirely behind the scenes, far removed from the flashing lights of Hollywood or the roar of sports arenas. Sodexo Magic secures massive, multi-year contracts to manage the daily operational logistics of vast corporate campuses, major university dining halls, hospital cafeterias, and extensive public school districts. The business model is predicated on capturing immense volume and securing recurring, dependable revenue streams from institutional clients. By holding the majority equity in this venture, Johnson engineered a perpetual cash flow engine that operates independently of retail consumer whims. when a major university needs to feed 30,000 students a day, or a multinational corporation requires comprehensive facilities management for its headquarters. They are writing massive long-term checks directly to an enterprise controlled by a former NBA point guard. This sophisticated B2B integration proves that Johnson's business acumen extends far beyond leveraging his celebrity status. He successfully penetrated the highest echelons of corporate contracting, establishing an infrastructure division that quietly generates exceptional, continuous returns for his broader investment portfolio. Chapter 5. The Lakers' Equity Play, from point guard to ownership. Before Johnson could dominate the broader Los Angeles sports landscape, he first had to conquer the franchise that defined his athletic legacy. In 1994, transitioning directly from his playing career, Johnson acquired a 4.5% equity stake in the Los Angeles Lakers. At the time, purchasing a minority stake in a professional basketball franchise was a significant yet relatively localized investment. However, over the subsequent decade and a half, the NBA experienced a spectacular explosion in global media rights, merchandise revenue, and franchise valuations. Johnson held his ownership position through one of the most dominant eras in modern sports history, allowing his equity to appreciate passively while the Lakers secured multiple championships between 1994 and 2010. This holding transformed his initial investment into a highly valuable liquid asset. Yet, Johnson understood a fundamental reality of elite wealth. Minority equity positions in sports franchises offer immense prestige, but they severely limit operational control and restrict an investor's ability to maneuver within the broader marketplace due to stringent league conflict of interest regulations. In October 2010, the same exact month he finalized the $100 million exit from his Starbucks venture, Johnson executed a highly coordinated liquidation of his Lakers equity. He sold his 4.5% interest to billionaire biotech entrepreneur Patrick Soon-Shiong for an estimated $27 million. To the casual observer, selling a stake in a beloved, championship-winning franchise seemed counterintuitive. But to a forensic financial analyst, the strategy was brilliantly clear. Johnson was systematically consolidating his liquid capital, clearing his balance sheet, and eliminating any regulatory barriers. He was raising a war chest because he knew a much larger, historic acquisition was looming on the horizon. Chapter 6. The Los Angeles Sports Monopoly, Dodgers, LAFC, and the Sparks. The capital consolidation of 2010 set the stage for 2012, the year Irvin Johnson effectively purchased the emotional and cultural heartbeat of Los Angeles. When the Los Angeles Dodgers, one of the most storied and valuable franchises in Major League Baseball, became available amidst a complex bankruptcy and ownership crisis, Johnson stepped to the forefront. Acting as the public face and a critical equity partner of the Guggenheim Baseball Management Group, Johnson collaborated with financial titans including Mark Walter, Todd Boehly, and Peter Guber to execute a complete acquisition of the team. The syndicate purchased the Dodgers for a reported $2 billion, executing what was, at the time, the largest team sports transaction in global history. This acquisition completely altered the hierarchy of American sports ownership. Johnson transitioned from a minority stakeholder in an NBA team to a primary architect of a baseball empire that controlled not only a legendary roster, but also the highly lucrative real estate of Dodger Stadium itself. But his aggressive expansion into the Los Angeles sports market was just beginning. In February 2014, when the Los Angeles Sparks of the WNBA were facing severe financial instability and the immediate threat of geographic relocation, Johnson led an acquisition group alongside his Dodgers partners, including Mark Walter and Todd Boehly, to purchase the franchise. This maneuver secured the legacy of one of the WNBA's original franchises, keeping them firmly rooted in Southern California. That exact same year, Johnson further diversified his sports portfolio by becoming a foundational part owner of the Los Angeles Football Club, LAFC, in Major League Soccer. By securing equity across Major League Baseball, the WNBA, and Major League Soccer, Johnson essentially engineered a localized sports monopoly. He embedded his corporate DNA into the daily entertainment consumption of millions of Southern Californians, ensuring that regardless of the season or the sport, the city's athletic commerce flowed through Magic Johnson Enterprises. While he later expanded his sports empire to the East Coast, joining the massive $6.05 billion acquisition of the NFL's Washington Commanders in 2023 and investing in the NWSL's Washington Spirit in 2024, his Los Angeles holdings remain the crown jewels of his athletic dominance. Chapter 7. Equitrust Life Insurance, the financial engine of a billionaire. Owning movie theaters, flipping commercial skyscrapers, commanding corporate food services, and holding equity in multiple professional sports franchises constitutes a spectacular portfolio. However, the ultimate threshold separating standard multimillionaires from entrenched, institutional billionaires is the control of a perpetual financial engine. In June 2015, Magic Johnson Enterprises reached the absolute zenith of corporate architecture by announcing the acquisition of a controlling interest in Equitrust Life Insurance Company. This singular transaction fundamentally changed the economic classification of Irvin Johnson. The life insurance sector operates on a highly sophisticated financial mechanism. Policyholders pay continuous premiums, creating a massive multi-billion-dollar pool of capital known as the float. Insurance companies hold these immense cash reserves and deploy them into diverse investment vehicles to generate yield before any claims must be paid out. By acquiring a controlling stake in Equitrust, Johnson gained executive influence over billions of dollars in active assets under management. He ceased being merely an investor. He became a primary capital allocator at an institutional scale. According to Forbes, the overwhelming majority of Johnson's estimated $1.2 billion net worth is directly derived from his massive stake in this Iowa-based life insurance provider. It is the ultimate old money strategy, mirroring the foundational wealth-building techniques utilized by the world's most elite financiers. Equitrust provides the structural gravity that anchors his entire empire, supplying the immense leverage and financial security required to operate globally. The acquisition proves that Johnson's final, most powerful evolution was mastering the absolute core of the American financial system, the management and deployment of institutional capital. Irvin Johnson did not just transition from sports to business. He engineered an entirely new paradigm for athlete wealth. He transformed the cultural capital of the basketball court into an institutional fortress that commands billions. Magic Johnson Enterprises proves that the most lucrative plays happen far away from the arena lights. Which of his massive acquisitions surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that like button, and subscribe to Black Status for more forensic breakdowns of elite generational wealth.